Hi, this is Dr. Shanine Sachadina from We Mentor You. You know, it's interesting. Statistics are that about 40 to 50% of marriages end in divorce. And actually, if it's a second marriage, it's over 60%. And what's interesting is if you think about it, we all know the stories about all of those horrible experiences that people go through divorce. Like from the time when that really difficult decision is made as to, yes, you're going to divorce, all the way to when you transition out into whatever your new life is. But there are certain people that tend to do it better and come out less scorched at the end. And so I really wanted to share a segment with somebody who I truly believe has come through this in a positive way, if there is such a thing, because there are never any winners in a divorce. So I really would like you to meet Felicia Dinner.
Thank you.
Welcome, Felicia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let's just do a little background thing. So you were how old when you divorced?
I was 37, so I got married a little later, right at 30, and had my daughter at 36. And then shortly after, as a lot of times after a child, things get difficult. So I think it was not a decision that we went into lightly, but it happened, and I think for me it was a lot of the shattering of what I believed my life would be, and what that fantasy of getting married and having children and having a house, and it was more the ending and shattering of the fantasy that was way more difficult.
You also came from a divorced household. So you probably had that insight of what it was like to be a child in that same household, right? And then in that same situation, and then coming out now being the parent.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
and did that somehow play a role in how you ultimately managed to kind of get through this?
Yes, I think a lot of it played the role in how I went about it. I think during the moments and the time you choose, like, I don't want to get divorced, and you kind of battle the idea because divorce has already got a big black mark on there, and it's already considered negative and has all this stigma, and even within our culture. So I was already feeling the pressure of family and, oh my gosh, what am I going to say to people? And all of those thoughts are going through my head. Um, but I think once I allowed things to settle and I was able to sit with the true reality of what is,
Mm-hmm.
and take away everybody else's voices and really listen to myself about what this meant, I then could use the lessons I learned as a child and through what I saw my own parents divorced to be, and make different decisions, or decisions based on what it was like to see both perspectives as a parent and a child.
So everybody has this concept of, right, like, oh, go out and get a lawyer, and you got to protect your kids, you got to protect your assets, you got to protect all of this. And so people have that mindset, but we all know this. But today, when we're discussing it, I want people to think things differently. Do you know that 70% of divorces are initiated by women?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so if that is the case, then maybe what we can do is actually empower people about, maybe there's another way to do this. Maybe it doesn't have to be this horrible drag out, because it's not an easy thing to go through, right?
No, no.
So tell us about, go back to that point of that decision is now made,
Yeah.
right? And you did things differently. What were the steps that you took?
So I think first and foremost, and what I tell women a lot of times who have come to me because I started an organization for single women. And so in this process, it was like, what do I do? I'm ready. I want to be done. And the first thing I would say is create some physical or emotional separation. So if they cannot physically leave the house, emotional separation and just space to give yourself a little time to to go through the thoughts without someone else's voice. And I think that's important because everybody's so rushed and wants to sign papers and get things done, but really sometimes maybe divorce is not the answer. Maybe, but everybody's scared to take space because we've been taught, oh, we got to figure it out right now and hammer it in. And that was also my mindset. I'm not going to take space. We're married. We got to figure it out right now. We talk it out and hash it out. And it's not always the best way.
To your point, do you know that in retrospect, 50% of people who are divorced wish they would have taken their time and thought it through and had some regrets for that process? So, what you're saying actually has twofold benefit, right? Get that space, think it through, and maybe work it out if you can.
Right. And I think taking the space with the idea of taking space to hear your voice. Don't take space with the idea of working it out or not working it out. Don't worry about the end, but worry about that moment, because I think we get very caught up in the idea of what someone else is thinking and what someone's doing to us, and we're blaming, and we're in that blame game when you're in the heat of the moment. And sometimes we need to take the space so we can take responsibility for ourselves and what we're bringing and what we're contributing. But until you do that and you're kind of like poking at the wound, it's just very difficult. And I think that's why physical space is great, because it gives you that time, it gives you that ability to work through things on your own without a lot of outside noise, and outside opinions is the other big thing. I think everybody has an opinion about it, and not always beneficial, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was something, right from the get-go, people were like, okay, get it done fast, get lawyers, and something we did was we just took time, and we took time in the same household, separated,
Mm-hmm.
and raised our daughter co-parenting in the same household, and really figured out how to be divorced or how to be separated. And we then decided this was the best means for us. This was what made sense after a year of doing that. But really, I mean, if you ask me today, like you asked me, when did I get divorced? I don't know. Like when we signed papers and it legally, because when it happened and we didn't even know. It was very, it was, anticlimactic, because we did all the work beforehand and we did the hard stuff. And so when it came to signing papers, there was no lawyers, there was no real, there was no fighting and bickering.
Right.
And
The healing had begun.
The healing had begun. There was no anger. So I think that was also a very important part, especially because we were going to be co-parenting.
Right.
We had to learn how to be whole individuals, and not come at it with the blame game, because at the end of the day, now we're co-parenting. And let me tell you, for women who are where we tend to be very type A and controlling, we come at it like, oh, but they're not going to do it the same way. And no, you want to talk about difficulty for a controlling person is allowing someone else to raise your child when you're not there and you don't have any say. And so those were some of the trust factors that you have to go through. You need to now trust this person and find healing with them. Because if you have anger and hating and all that stuff, you still have to let that child go with them. And that's just angst and more anger.
But you also said that it's okay. Like when we had discussed this even before,
100%.
because your child actually has now two perspectives.
100%.
Right?
We all believe, oh, we need to be a united front. And even for couples who are married, this concept of, but children can also see that people can have different opinions and different ways of doing things. And they're not wrong or right. They're just different. And I think having the contrast is a beautiful thing for a child, to see that we can do things this way and when we can do them this way and still get the similar results. Or so I think that's a really great thing. And we kind of we think about it in a way that, no, if we're not the same and they don't go to bed at the same time and eat the same thing, they won't survive. And the beauty is they're very resilient.
And you also said that when your partner or your ex-husband or your ex-spouse takes your child for the weekend or whatever, it gives you that time for yourself to heal, to breathe, and to try to just do some self-care.
Yes. So, that was the one thing. It was very challenging when we made the the actual big separation where we were in different houses and he started to take her for days, I mean, like any parent, right? It's like
Mhm.
losing a limb. You don't know what to do.
Mhm.
But I had to keep telling myself, it's okay. Because if I say no to this, it's also saying no to myself and to my own self-care. And I knew that giving myself that time allowed me to be a more present mother when I did have her. And I tell other mothers who come to me this all the time because they say, oh, they won't be able to do it. They can't take them for 2 days or 3 days or 5 days. And I always say, you will be surprised. They will. They will show up. I also believe we don't give dads enough credit.
Mhm.
It's just the reason they haven't. I see, 9 times out of 10, the reason they don't do it is because we don't let them do it. Because we always want it done our way. When given the opportunity, they rise to the occasion. It's also their child. They also love and care about their children. And now again, not the same way we would do it, but they do it in their own way. And so I think just giving the opportunity, it's allowed us, in my personal situation, allowed both of us to really grow as individuals and as parents. And really, she gets the best of both of us.
And I think that's super important. At the end of the day, from what I'm listening to you, you sort of shielded your family away from opinions. You basically took control of what this looks like. How is your family going to handle this? At one point previously, and when you and I had discussed this off camera, you had said, me, my ex husband, and my daughter together, we had to figure out how to be divorced and shield ourselves from everybody's opinion, every society expectation. And I think that really did help you because I listened to you, the insight that you have. And that's not something that just happened, right? That's something that happened because you went through this experience.
Yes.
And in retrospect, you were able to see all of the good things that came out of it
Yes.
so that you can share with others that this is what they can expect if they take the right steps.
Yes.
Right.
And it's easier said than done because we have people in our lives who love us and really are trying to give us their opinion out of a place of concern and care
They're
and
trying
love.
to advocate for you.
They are. But I think, what really rang very true to me is through the process and hearing all this stuff, oh, go to this lawyer and this person will take care of you. And none of it felt good, right? I think it was that moment where I really had to dig deep and listen to my own intuition and see what rang true for me. And sometimes the answer was, I don't know what rings true for me. I don't know what the answer is. And when it's I don't know, you sit and you do nothing.
Breathe.
And we sat. And that's why we sat for
Yeah.
2 years. We sat. Now, again, not everybody has the luxury. Sometimes there's financial situations where things have to be done. But even then, there's always time to just sit and really get clear with your perspective. And I think the other big thing was to get out of the blame game. So if you're still in the blame game and you have the anger, you're not quite there. And really, for me, the turning point, I would say, is being able to do the inner work to take responsibility. For me to say, this is how I contributed to the demise.
Mhm.
This is what I showed up with. Now, of course, people are gonna, but he did this and that's not what we're talking about. Because at the end of the day, through life,
Right.
we can always blame other people, but it always comes back to us. And it's only ourselves that we have 100% control over,
Sure.
and 0%
Over anybody else.
over anybody else. So really, how we show up, with what intention. I have people that say, oh, my ex-partner is not going to go into it like that. They're super angry there. That's okay. You can still show up in a certain way. And when you show up that way, it is going to create a different level of peace and a different mindset for you. Because for me, people would come to me and say, oh, you're divorced, I'm so sorry. And I would say, don't be sorry. It's not a bad thing. And, part of the advocating for single women was I wanted to break the stigma of ending a divorce or an end of a marriage means it was a bad marriage. No, I tell people I think I had a great marriage. My marriage was the one relationship that was a huge growth catalyst for me. Without that, I don't think my level of growth and internal consciousness would have gone as quickly as it would have. He was the catalyst, and this situation would increase my trajectory tremendously, because had I not gone through that pain and breaking this idea of what I thought marriage was and what I thought my life would be, I had to shatter that and let that dream go and step into who I really was, which is a hard thing to do because we all live by, the world says we should be this, and culture says this, and our family says this. And until we can break those norms and really see it as the fictitious story that it is. And it's not to say, that marriage is bad, and that, no, but it's the concept of that I will die without it, or I'm different without it, or I'm different with it. I think, this idea that, oh, if I had the ring and I had the husband, I am lovable and I am somebody. And that was hard to heal from, because then when you don't have that, then what does that mean? You're unlovable and you're not somebody. And you have to heal that wound to say, no, I am amazing and I am all that I was and all that I am at any given point in my life, no matter what happened.
I think that when you take a look at the divorce and in regard to what women lack, it's two things. One, and this is just in general, and if you actually do the research, this is exactly what they say. There's two things that they say. One is that they're not willing to negotiate in a divorce. And when you're not willing to negotiate, you prolong everything. And so once you heal from the pain, right, then you can sit and you can clearly think, and then you can negotiate what is it that you need out of the settlement so that you can move forward.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. And the second thing that people say a lot, especially attorneys, is women are not prepared. In other words, they don't know their financial situation. And so they go into it without that knowledge.
Right.
And in general terms, I would say all women and men should be equally versed in what their financial situation is like. I think it's something, God forbid, divorce or death, you should be able to move in a positive direction with that knowledge so that you can help yourself and your family.
Absolutely.
And so, kind of just putting it together, what you did was you sort of took your time and separated the pain as long as it took, which took 2 years, separated that out, and then really came to the table as a more mature, as somebody who grew up. Your daughter at that point now had another 2 years, because she was a baby when you guys were separated.
Yeah, so she was 18 months when we started the process. And so, yeah, then she kind of moved in, and she is 7 now. She'll be 7 in November. And we co-parent 50-50. And I believe we co-parent in a very beautiful way, where, for example, we had a barbecue at my brother's house yesterday, and my co-parent was there, and my daughter and my family, and he participates in all of that. So she sees us all as a unit. We do things together. So even when she's with me, we do family things together. When she's with him, the three of us will make time that the three of us as a family unit do things.
But would that not be difficult though if you had a partner and he had a partner?
So we haven't crossed that bridge yet. So I believe that sure, that could obviously cause some issues in the future. However, I also know it can work, because as I got older, and my parents' divorce was difficult when we were young. It was a lot of the typical backbiting and all this stuff. But as we got older, and we became less of the focus, and we got into our older years, both of my parents had partners. And when I tell you, we had Christmas with everybody and everybody's kids and everybody's, and
that went well.
And it went well. And I believe it is possible. And when you are of a certain conscious level, I personally would not enter into another relationship with somebody who wouldn't be willing to do this. It would be a deal breaker for me, 100%,
Fair enough.
without question. So, because we've worked really hard to build this. And if I would bring somebody in the relationship that wouldn't want my daughter's father around, deal breaker. So for me, it's not a trade-off. It's not a trade-off for me because I feel very certain in the steps that we've taken. And I feel like it's very much who I am, because that was the one thing that in my healing process, I sat and I said, what do I want this divorce to be? What do I want it to look like in 5 years and 10 years? What do I want my daughter's life to look like? And it was this. And so
Good
I
for
had to
you.
take the steps. Did that mean that I had to do really hard things and I had to, at the moment, like, this isn't what, but yeah, but that's part of the growth. And that's part of the, no, not always being right. No, sometimes I had to do something and then come back later and say, that wasn't, tell him I shouldn't have done that. That was the wrong thing. But that admission comes with becoming an adult and growing that little part of ourself up that's still looking for someone to love me and care for me. And I've learned, like, no, I need to love myself and give myself the things that I've always been looking for from someone else. And then you meet your match.
You
And
know,
then you meet your partner.
you know what you did? It's like I think you became an example for your daughter too. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
as your daughter sees this and when she goes away and she sees other divorced kids, and I think when they share stories, you know, hers will be that of I was loved by two people and an entire family. And, I don't remember those really horrible times or those
No.
horrible fights or, my mom saying something bad about my dad. Like, I don't remember all of that.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, no, divorce is never easy. It is probably one of the most difficult decisions that you make and probably one of the most difficult journeys that you take. But I think Felicia actually gives this amazing story of how it can be done. Maybe coming out at the other end, you're not as scorched, but maybe you're different. Like you said, not a bad thing, not a good thing, but different. More confident, more human. And humanity and kindness go a really long way, and I think that's what you can offer your children. So again, all divorces are different, right? Everybody's story is different. But I think when you think about what Felicia said, give yourself time, give yourself space, give your family sort of a cover to kind of work this out amongst yourselves. And then when you are healing, not healed, but when you're healing, you can take the next steps, right? But be prepared financially, know what your financial situation is, and again, it's interesting, it's a very difficult decision to get to, but once you get there, there is no formula, there is no pathway, right? So you need to do what's right for you because we're all on a journey.
Yeah. And I think just to remember, the big thing is there is no right or wrong way,
Mm-mm.
right?
Right.
I've learned through my journey that being married or not being married, there is no right or wrong way. No one is better than the next. These are all just decisions that we make as we're all on this path and this journey
Mm-hmm.
to get to know ourselves deeper. And some people have to take one path and others another path. And with that said, just do it with your full presence and your full commitment to yourself.
I also think it's interesting because you are really empathetic to a lot of things. I know you've taken on charity causes. We Mentor You is completely donated talent, and Felicia has been a part of that. So I've gotten to know her, and honestly, everything that she's telling you is truly true. It's truly coming from where she is. She started an organization. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I started through this process. And as I started to go through my healing journey with my family and culture, part of it was, kind of getting this, not backlash, but, oh my gosh, you're divorced. I'm so sorry. And for me, it was not this the end. It was really the awakening for me. And I didn't feel like, yes, the end of my marriage was sad, but really it was also the beginning of a new relationship between me and my co-parent. So now I wanted to create an organization. It's called the Lioness Pride. And really it is about, if you look at lionesses, really they come together and they raise their young. And it's about single women coming together and supporting each other and empowering each other through this journey um, of separation or divorce, and really giving them a platform to say, you know, it doesn't have to be this, oh, single moms are always, you know, struggling for money, or always this, or always, and following that stigma pattern. No, a lot of times we are badass entrepreneurs and doing
That's right.
doing our thing and raising amazing children, co-parenting, not co-parenting, whatever it might be, but paving a new way and paving a new path. Because really the mentality of this is the end of the end is just no longer right. I think the world is now changing to where there are new births and new beginnings and deaths and happening all the time, right? The beginning of a new job, the end of a job, the beginning of this. And we have to look at it as an opportunity to step into ourselves more. So, yes, you can find us on social media. It's called The Lioness Pride. And we've done some face-to-face meetings. We tried to do some meetups virtually as well. And we
But it's
just,
all support.
it's all
all
support.
mentoring, right?
And that was the one thing that I think really helped me, is finding women who could support each other through this process,
Right.
that I could lean on, that was not necessarily um, family or the people closest to me, right? I
Right.
needed to get people who maybe aligned a little more with where I was in that moment, and people who had gone through it already, so they could help me through the different steps. And that's just to say that we just to support each other and voice some of the challenges and concerns. And so, you know, when I had my first night away from my daughter, I had someone to talk to, and they were like, yeah, it's going to be hard. You're going to lay in their bed and you're going to cry. And that's just what it is. So just do it and enjoy it, because it's not going to be like that forever. And that's what I did. So I already knew that was going to happen, and that's what happened. So it was beautiful.
And that's the power of mentoring, right? Like we were just discussing before we started.
Yes.
What did you say? You said mentoring
Yes.
is
It's every teacher is a student, and mentoring and that transferring of information is how we grow and we support each other.
That is true. And so here on We Mentor You, that is our mission. That is our hope, that you will find this information useful, and hopefully this will ease your journey if you are going through this. Thank you for watching.